November this year.
What is going to happen? I don't know. Okay, so great.
Neki tanwakul.
Bakwachi.
I would like to request all our participants to rename themselves. If you are a child attendee, please change your name to D/your name/country allocated. If you are a child attendee, please change your name to A-your name-country. For our adult attendees, please change your name to O-your name-country. For our panelists, please change your name to P-your name-organization-country. You can change your name by clicking on the participants button below. and then click on the name and choose the rename option. Our staff members will share this on the chat box for your reference. In case you are unable to change your name, kindly ask your mentors or family members who are around you.
A very warm welcome to one and all. My name is Neha Jain and I will be your host for the summit. It is rightly said that young people should be at the forefront of global change and innovation. Empowered, they can be the key agents for development and peace. On this note, now I would like to introduce my co-host Neelam, who is herself a young citizen belonging to an indigenous community. She is herself a climate activist and has been a part of Pratyek for the last 5 years. Pratyek is a child rights and earth rights organization which believes in educating children and their care providers in the art of advocacy and justice. Pratyek collaborates with a wide network of organizations and schools and helps spread its vision of every child, standing for every right for everyone. Neelam is also a member of a local youth parliament called Pratyeksh, which is a Hindi word for direct. We believe it is time for us to speak directly to the national parliament and all levels of governance, from village to the international sector, because our voice matters. Likewise, Neelam has also been a part of organizing monthly climate strikes outside India's national parliament in support of Greta Thunberg's Fridays for Future.
Welcome to the Earth Summit 2021. Thanks for joining in. I would again request you all, our participants, to rename themselves. If you are a child attendee, please change your name to D dash your name dash country allocated. If you are a child attendee, please change your name to A, your name slash your country. For our adult attendee, please change your name to O, your name slash your country. For our panelists, please change your name to P slash your name slash organization slash country. You can change your name by clicking on the participants button below and then click on your name and choose the rename option. Our staff members will share this on the chat box for your reference. In case you are unable to change your name, kindly ask your mentors or family members who are around you. Thank you so much, Neha, for that introduction. Neha herself is a 17-year-old budding social activist and a civil service aspirant. She has actively been working in collaboration with various NGOs for the past few years for causes like child rights, healthcare, and environmental conservation. She has been an active volunteer in Pratyek from coming on ground for COVID relief to participating in campaigns and initiatives such as Pratyek's Children's Parliament, Summer of C19, and Art for Advocacy. Neha has left no stone unturned to contribute to society. What strikes her most about Pratyek is its Nine is Mine campaign. It is a national advocacy campaign of, for, and by children. The purpose of the campaign is to put children from across the country, both general and vulnerable children in particular, at the center of advocacy efforts. Speaking in one voice to enable every child to enjoy basic healthcare and quality education as their non-negotiable rights.
Now I would like to inform you all that translations are available in Hindi and sign language. Please choose the options below. Now, as we all know, ecosystems, the fabric of life on which we depend, is rapidly declining because of our actions. We've been using more and more natural resources, and this has come at a cost. At this crucial time, Pratyek, in collaboration with Edmund Rice International, welcomes you to the first ever Earth Summit. Edmund Rice International is a non-governmental organization based in Geneva and working in 30 countries for children and young people who are marginalized because of poverty, lack of access to education, legal status, and environmental degradation. We heartily welcome our partners to the summit.
So, the Earth Summit 2021 is stretched out over a course of 3 days where we aim to represent youth's voice from over 193 countries and territories to discuss their concern on environmental problems. This 3 day of intense discussion will culminate in creation of a collaborative list of recommended solutions, which will then be submitted to COP26 scheduled in November this year.
Thank you, Neelam, for that insight of the program. Now, you might be wondering why we named our summit as Earth Summit. Any guesses? So basically, ER denotes Earth Rise, but it is also for us signifying Edmund Rice, who is our patron. We are the presence of Edmund Rice International in India, and E for us signifies Edmund, education, empathy, empowerment, ethics, for every right, for the earth, for every child, for everyone. Before moving ahead, now I would like to share some rules that all participants and guests must follow. Kindly keep yourself on mute throughout the session. Only unmute yourself when asked. There are interpretations available in sign language and Hindi. For those who would like to use Hindi interpretation, please click the interpretation button at the bottom of your screen. Those who prefer sign language, please pin the video of Ms. Erin on your screen. Also, remember to rename yourself as per the instructions given earlier.
Since Pratik is a child rights organization, it believes in the safeguarding of its network of children. And now we would like to brief you on child safeguarding.
Pratyek, in order to maintain child safeguarding, has taken necessary precautions to prevent face-to-face visibility, manage unsupervised children, and secure meetings, webinar imposters, and Zoom bombing. We have appointed individual staff who will monitor participants at all points of time.
Thank you for sharing the guidelines on child safeguarding. We will be sure to follow the rules or maintaining the decorum of the summit.
Did you know in 2021, 9 is Mine will be launching the UNCRC and UPR Shadow Report of, by, and for the children of India. Along with this report, 9 is Mine will also be creating the COP26 report and Universal Periodic Submission along with children. Children across India will be engaging with multiple stakeholders from local to national levels for the same, including the local administration bodies, members of legislative assemblies, member of parliament, bureaucrats, and other stakeholders. To be a part of this, just click on the link mentioned in the chat box. Also, remember to follow us on social media handles including Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. We regularly post our upcoming events. And you can be a global ambassador for Pratyek by being a part in all of them.
Now, we open the floor of our panel discussion. We have our eminent global speakers who have specially come in today to address our participants. The first panelist is Miss Anita. She is passionate activist, traveler, and a firm believer of experiential learning and transformational leadership with more than 20 years of experience. While pursuing her dream career of becoming a chartered accountant, she realized her inner calling in somewhere else. She realized that the justice streak in her always plays the most important role in her life. Following her instincts, she began working with the indigenous tribes in the Himalayas, leading her way as a student activist and then working with the Santhal tribes in Jharkhand. She is the founder of Invasion, Experiential Learning and Earn Learning Center based in Auroville, which has an objective to design sustainable experiential learning and transformational courses for self-development and leadership among the children, youth, and adults of the world based on inner wisdom. We welcome you to this event, Ms. Anita. Ms. Anita, please unmute yourself and address our participants.
Hello. Good morning, everyone. So good to see you all. And I feel privileged to be among the youngsters here who are actually the future of the earth. And thank you for letting me have the pleasure of addressing you. So I would see my journey started as a earth activist, you can say a global earth activist, very young at age, because I've been living at the Himalayas, at the foothills of the Himalayas. That's where my upbringing was. And then slowly when I started, I was very passionate about numbers and I wanted to be a chartered accountant. And I was like, this is what I really want to be. And I worked through it. And somewhere when I was almost about to reach to my goal, I realized that the corporate world is not the world where I want to be, because this is the world which is actually ultimately exploiting for the making of profit for themselves. And somewhere the earth exploitation is also happening. Then I mean, it was just a click and overnight, I just dropped out of it. I enrolled myself in a human rights course, and I was fortunate to be part of the first ever residential human rights course which happened in India. And since then, the journey started. And interestingly, when I was asked to be a panelist here, and my thesis when I was doing the human rights course was the child rights. So I was like, oh, wow, I mean, I'm going back to that domain again. And since then, the journey began, and I started working with the tribes in the Himalayas and tribes in the Jharkhand, and now I'm based in Auroville. In this process of growing up, and I have a child of 14 years, and all of a sudden it struck me, what kind of an education am I giving to my child? And I was like, my learning has been not in the four walls and through textbooks. My real life learning has been from the real life experiences which I have got from being in the nature and from the community where I have lived. So it's like, why not create programs and why not bring the paradigm shift in the entire education system in such a manner that the core of the child comes out. See, we can sit in a classroom and we can study. We can study a lot and we can become a professional, what we want. But the life skills were missing somewhere. I mean, our education system has become like a factory. You know, we are producing for the commercial world. But where is our earth in this? Where am I in this? Where are we in this? So to bring, for the holistic development of a child, to bring the spark which each and every individual has. Each child is very special. Each one of us is very special. And we have something very, 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 very precious within us and very pure within us. But what happens is, over the period of time, with the conditioning which we get from the society, that layers and layers and layers covers, and we forget who we are. And we start operating from the fear space. You know, fear of not being good enough, fear of being rejected, fear of being ridiculed, fear of being laughed around. So somewhere, what I am, that light within me, what I hold, I have lost, and I start operating from the fear space. And that my actions are coming from the fear which I have, not from the core value which I have inherited by being on this earth. So the whole idea is to bring that core out in each one of us. And I can assure you, when we start operating from the core, the quality which I have, the actions changes. So just imagine, just visualize this world. You know, I am operating from a fear space. Likewise, my family is operating from a fear space. Likewise, my city is operating from a fear space. My country is operating from a fear space, and the whole world is operating from a fear space. So when you look from far from a space, the earth which you see is all emitting fear, fear, fear. So the time has come to shift this gear from fear to the qualities and the values which we have. So imagine each one of us operating from the value I inherit, the value of courage, the value of justice, the value of dignity, the value of creativity, the value of innovation, and see how the world will be. So the underlying process of all the problems which we see around is this, that we need to bring a shift within ourselves and the perspective from which we see, and not the perspective from which the world is trying to show us, which is striving for the profit-driven economy. We're trying to we are no one to save actually. We are the one who have destroyed our planet. The only thing which we can do is make a difference that the coming generation doesn't suffer, because what we have done, what the other generation has done in order to maximize their profit. And I tell you that each child has a power to change this world, change themselves and the world around them. And one should not ever feel that, what can I do just alone? Because these 100 alones will make a difference. So imagine if all the children in this world come together and say enough is enough, and I do not want to be part of the system which you have created to destroy the earth. So the reign is in your hand. The power is in your hand. So one has to feel that power within your own self, that yes, I am the change. So I matters. And when these I come together, it becomes we matters, and we bring the change. So try to find out what is that one thing within yourself that aspires you, without which you have sleepless nights. For me, it was courage and justice. I was like, if I see injustice happening anywhere, I couldn't sleep. I was having troubles. And I was like, there is something wrong with the way I am living my life. So, what it is? So, the first step was to tell myself the truth that, Anita, you're living in a falsehood. What you are aspiring for and what your actions are not aligned to each other. So, your inner self and the outer actions have to be aligned. So I have to do what I believe in and not what my parents or my society is trying to tell. And once that alignment happens, things fall in right place. So whether it is about saving the planet or even a simple step of how do I live my life, align your actions with the core values which you inherit. Whether it is generosity, whether it is humility, whether it is perseverance, whether it is courage, there are these universal qualities which each one of us inherit. And if you minus them, we kind of collapse, no? We feel uneasy. So what is that I feel uneasy with if I don't do in such a manner? Recognize that and align your actions with that. And you will see that you are making a difference for yourself and for the larger planet. Thank you. I can go on again and again, but I'll summarize here only by saying that it's us who has the power to change the world.
Definitely, ma'am. And thank you so much. This was so insightful as you talked about core values and alignment between inner self and outer world. Thank you so much. And as you talked about profit driven economy and exploitation, I remembered a quote: there's enough for everyone's need, but not for greed. So with this, now I would like to invite our next panelist, Mr. Jonathan Levin. He is a teacher and trainer of child professionals. He is educated in the pedagogy and the philosophy of education and lives and works in France. He provides training in the education, social, intergovernmental, and NGO sectors. He was also the director of pedagogy and advocacy for CREA, Child Rights in Action. He's a consultant for both UNESCO and UNICEF in pedagogy and children's rights. Above all, he is also a member of the High Commission on Children's Issues created by the French government. Sir, please unmute yourself and address the audience.
Thank you so much. I'm so happy and honored to be amongst you. I hope I'm audible correctly. Yes, everything's okay, good. I first of all want to congratulate and salute Pratiak 9 is Mine for this wonderful experience that you've put together and so many people here. My contribution is very specific towards children's rights. I'm not an expert on earth rights, but I believe that children, in order for them to be engaged in this very, very important issue, need to have their rights fully understood. So what I'd like to really sort of talk with you about is what are the conditions which will help children to fully engage in their rights, in other words, to be total participants. I'm just going to share the screen with you. I just have a couple of slides, not very many, but it will just maybe help you to understand. Is this working? Can everybody see that? Yeah. So basically, in order for children and young people to engage, they need to be child rights holders. In other words, if we adults are holding the rights, it's no longer child rights. So the key area for child rights to be the reality is when children hold their rights and become full participants and activists, advocates for their rights. Now, this is an ethical question, and it's exactly the same with all human rights. If we make a comparison to women's rights, if it's only men that are arguing and advocating for their rights, it's no longer women's rights. So women need to engage in their rights. But this does not come about automatically. And over the years, my specialization, which is attempting to create some marriage between pedagogy in my area and children's rights, has really allowed me to create, I would say, laboratory situations, which is accumulated into a program called Child Rights in Action, where we can experiment with what those conditions are, which will allow children to fully engage. And in this particular context, to fully engage in the issue of earth rights and to defend the good management of the planet in terms of its environment. So for me, the first thing is that in all circumstances, working with children, those rights need to be fully acted, and not just in a legal, political sense, but in a real sense in our relationship to children. And in order to do that, the rights can be regrouped amongst that in many ways, but I'm going to propose that one way that you may know already is by ensuring that all the rights are in action. And these three groups of P's, participation, protection, and provision, are fully present in everything that we do, in everything that we organize. In other words, for children to fully participate, it's an interactive, systemic process where for children to fully engage in their participation, which is the basis of all human rights, they need to feel protected. And feeling protected is not overprotecting children, because we know that then there's no freedom to participate. We're doing everything for them. And it's not underprotecting, where children feel intimidated or even humiliated or in difficulty, or there is a power balance where adults are holding too much of the power. So we know that protection is not just about protecting in the classical sense of danger, but it's about creating a safe environment where children feel fully free to participate. Creating an environment where we have trust, where we have confidence, where we're listening, where we have mutual respect. All those elements come into the way that we are dealing with the problem, and creating an environment where children feel constantly free to express themselves without having to please the adults, but being authentic. Now, it works the other way around as well, so that children can participate not just for participation, but that they can participate to improve protection. And this is what this whole summit is about with Earth Rights, is children, as we know, can be amazing contributors to creating a safer, better world for us all, as adults do indeed. So it's working together with adults to create a safe environment where human security and the planet is safe. And children represent a third of the world's population, so to exclude the voice of the child is not fully inclusive to the problem. And underestimating children is one of the issues that we have to deal with constantly. The second element is, of course, provision. We need to be able to provide the right environment, the right tools, the right methods, the right people, the right attitudes and behaviors, the right tools, and providing all those things within the convention, which include schooling in the home and in leisure, in all those environments, providing the right quality, which will allow children again to fully participate. And children can improve, of course, the other way around, provision, and create better provision by co-creating with adults better schooling, better play, better culture, better environment in the family situation. If we include children in the decision making on how to improve that, and of course it's really important that we do, because they know and it's their experience that we need to listen to. So is taking all the rights, and not just participation, but taking all the rights into play in an interactive, real sense that is the fundamental of the transition. And the other aspect is that we must understand there is a difference between participation and consultation. So consultation is asking people their opinions on things, and that's okay, but we mustn't confuse it with participation, full participation. In full participation, it means that we are, from the very beginning, co-designing, co-understanding, and choosing together what we want to do to improve situations. In consultation, very often, particularly in political situations, adults and decision makers have already decided what they decided to do, and they just want to ask children's opinions on these things, confirm children's opinions. So it's based on a co-construction, on a co-development. It's not children on their own, it's not adults on their own, but it's developing in a collaborative, constructive way together. And the other thing that we need to take into account that sometimes is missing is time, that many adults have been thinking about these problems for a very long time, so we're very much prepared. And suddenly asking children and youth that haven't had that time to think about these things is to misunderstand the development necessary. So a lot of children need time, they need to have meetings, to have different experiences, and to come back at other times and to prepare themselves in order to really engage in these very big issues and to acclimatize to themselves, so that we don't just have a superficial conversation with children and youth. The process, there needs to be right from the beginning an agreement on the choice of action, on the choice of the issues, and that has to be taken into account both children and adult points of view. And one of the other issues is that I've heard so many times, well, children don't know enough about things and so on. Children today and youth today, we have the technology, we have many other aspects where children, if they're missing knowledge or adults are missing knowledge, we have the importance of doing research, and research today is open to everybody. So we can find what we're missing. And so the excuse that children are too young to engage or they don't know enough to engage is really inappropriate, it's disrespectful, but it's also helping children and guiding children to do their own research so they become knowledgeable and to co-construct the knowledge. And then to allow them to present in the way that they want to do, including small children and listening to children, whether they're drawing, whether they're speaking, whether they're showing us in many other ways what they want to produce. And finally, with children, working with children, the experience is that things need to be experiential. It's not always a kind of situation where we're just speaking, but children need to engage physically, emotionally with the issue. So we need to have activities that represent that. We need to create laboratories, safe environments for adults and children to work together. And we need to have a coherent storyline that children and adults are building together, what the beginning of their story is, what the middle and what the end result of the story is, and to find coherent ways. Children suffer a great deal, particularly in secondary school, when they have this disjointed curriculum of learning, and where they're going from mathematics to chemistry and so on with no or little connections between the two. And so it's important that we don't necessarily have to repeat this kind of thing, but we can build a coherent story, and through the use of varied activities, which is important because one of our big problems today is concentration. So those are some of the elements. It's not exhaustive, but those are some of the elements I wanted to share with you this morning, to think about what kind of conditions will enable children to be empowered to fully engage in this important issue of Earth rights. Thank you very much.
Sir, you rightly said that every child has the right to participate and feel protected so that a child can be fully free and children are the contributors to create the safer environment. Thank you, Mr. Jonathan. It is always a pleasure to have you with us.
Now, I have an exciting idea. Do you know what would make this summit even more fun, Neelam?
I know what you are thinking. It's pop quiz time.
That's correct. Now, answer the question shown on your screen and remember, you have 30 seconds to answer this question.
Which day is Earth Day?
बर्थडे कब होता है भाई? 22 अप्रैल, 21 दिसंबर, 12 अगस्त.
Ma'am, screen.
We
Visible
request the participants to kindly mute themselves.
Hello, ma'am. Screen is not
Okay.
visible.
So, the correct answer of the first question is 22nd of April. And 80% of us got it right. Kudos to everyone. Yes, 22nd of April is the Earth Day. This is a nearly 50-year-old tradition established in 1970, dedicated to bringing the environment to the forefront. Each year, Earth Day Network works to bring together communities around the world in a huge campaign to tackle modern-day environmental problems in an effort to continue the Earth Day tradition.
With this, let us invite our next panelist, Brother Kevin Colley. He is currently the Executive Director of the Thomas Berry Forum for Ecological Dialogue at Iona College in New Rochelle, New York. He is also the editor and publisher of a monthly electronic newsletter on environmental concerns called the Carbon Rangers Ecozoic Times. The newsletter has grown to an audience of 600 plus subscribers in over 30 countries, and he takes particular interest in linking to the teaching of Pope Francis in Laudato Si. On Care for Our Common Home, his encyclical of 2015. Brother Kevin has been serving for the past 15 years at United Nations headquarters in New York as the main representative of Edmund Rice International.
Thank you, Neela. Just checking that I can be heard clearly. That's good to know. I want to thank everyone for having me join you this morning from New York, where it's after 11 o'clock at night, but that's fine. And in a general way, what I'm trying to do here is help you understand that the work with children also leads in interesting directions in terms of legal pathways for children's rights and the environment. So I'm going to just summarize several points about the legal situation that's been developing around the world with respect to children's rights and the environment. I'll refer, first of all, to a day of general discussion, which happened in September of 2016 at the Committee on the Rights of the Child at the UN. They had a number of experts over the day, and they received a number of submissions, and they made several recommendations. One of the things that happened at that meeting, they realized that with environmental damage and children's rights, that the question is always in legal terms, requiring individuals that must be directly affected or have sufficient interest along with the lack of complaint mechanisms means that often children have practically no means of asserting their rights in the environmental context. Occasionally, children do get to challenge the courts about their rights. Recently in the United States, a group of children pursued legal actions against the US government in all 50 states, claiming insufficient action to secure a stable climate for all generations. They've met with several obstacles. One of the obstacles is they were told they don't have standing in the courts because the harm hasn't happened to them yet. Therefore, there's no reason for them to be in court. The other problem had to do with the fact that the judges at some point said, well, it's not an issue for judges. It's not a judicial question. It's really a legislative question. And you need to go back and change these concerns into legislative actions and then come back to court. So right now it's in a kind of a holding position. We're still looking for this environmental principle of intergenerational equity. That's why Laudato Si is so important, because Pope Francis has made the case that intergenerational justice is essential if we're going to preserve our common home. So the many young people on this call today, Pope Francis would be looking in your direction and saying, we need to pay attention for your sake, and you need to pay attention because you're going to be inheriting this planet. So let's find a way to connect. Right now, in a conclusion that we could say is temporary, we think the states should ensure that children have access to justice and an effective remedy for violations due to environmental harm. States need to rebalance the burden of proof and the rules of evidence to remove barriers to bringing complaints of environmental harm involving children. So we're not there yet. We still have work to do. In particular, the United States case, that's called Juliana versus United States. You could Google it and find out where it's going. The complaint asserts that through the government's affirmative actions that cause climate change, basically the students are saying, and the young people saying, this government in the US has subsidized the fossil fuel industry. The fossil fuel industry is damaging the environment. Therefore, it's damaging our chances for life, liberty, and property, as well as failing to protect essential public trust resources. Now, right now, the court case is winding very slowly. This began in 2015, and we're at 2021, so it's 6 years on. One of the difficulties is some of the young people are aging out of the category of children. So that by the time this gets to a resolution, they won't even be children anymore. So there's another challenge when the courts take so long. So basically, the complaint asserts that through the government's affirmative actions that cause climate change, it has violated the youngest generation's constitutional rights to life, liberty, and property. I think I can hear an echo of the 9 is Mine case in India about what's the government failing to do. So I'm sure that there's a resonance with some of those impulses. The other difficulty here in this country, United States, 18 state governments have now become adversaries and are resisting any settlement. So it's split the country in many ways, and it's a sad report that so many individual state attorney generals don't believe in this case. So we'll have to hope that things get better soon. On the other hand, we have some good news from Germany. In April, Germany's highest court, the Federal Court of Justice, ruled that the country's law, the 2019 Climate Protection Act, does not go far enough to safeguard the rights of the country's youth. So they sided with the youth climate activists. So that should be encouraging to any of you who are working on the Fridays for Future. If you're a youth climate activist, it does sometimes go in your favor. The advantage that the German youth had was that there was already a law in place that they could challenge. The American youth had no law in place to challenge, so that's why it's slower there. But the German court said the German government has to do better. And the Climate Protection Act in Germany establishes 10 years of reductions, but the young people and environmental associations told them substantial measures need to be established for 2031 to 2050 to effectively reach the country's and the agreement's goals. So they said they're not really doing enough. So that the court focused on civil liberties for future generations. They said the rights are being infringed. So the German government now has to go back and fix that law. Australia has similar development. It hasn't completed its course yet, but in Australia, a class action has been launched on behalf of young people. Once again, they're seeking an injunction to stop the Australian government approving an extension to Whitehaven's Vickery coal mine, arguing that this will harm young people by exacerbating climate change. You see the same argument. We're young people. We look to the future. We see that our own case is going to be damaged by this greenhouse gas emissions that you're allowing to happen. You're the government. So we want you to stop it. Right now, it's not a claim under environmental law. Interesting. They're making the claim as a common law duty of care for young people. So again, if you're in Nina's mind, or you're even in Pratyek about where to go with this, there's another avenue. Doesn't have to be just environment. It might be going in a better direction. You challenge the government on common law duty of care. So that's another feature of what's possible. When we briefly mention Portugal, there's a child's court case, and they're going to challenge Portugal because they're not cutting greenhouse gas emissions fast enough. In Ireland, a court has ruled in favor of the children. Again, similar values around cutting emissions, so they have to improve their record in Ireland. Friends of the Irish Environment, FIE, brought the legal case. They call it Climate Case Ireland, and they say basically the plan that the Irish government has designed is not fit for purpose. So it's not going to achieve the reductions needed. So this was a good development. The judge in the recent case overturned the decision from a court last year, which had rejected the case. So progress there as well. So we have a number of places around the planet where legal pathways are opening up. Young people are getting some relief, and the courts are starting to listen. They're starting to listen. So I'm glad to see there's so many young people on this call, and I did a quick count. There's about 40 different countries, I believe, represented tonight. So congratulations to all of the organizers for a wonderful turnout. And I'll stop now and let people have a few moments peace. God bless.
Thank you so much, Brother Kevin. And it has been so enriching and thought-provoking to hear different facts that you've mentioned. And I'm sure that all the young people out here will definitely dive deeper into the different avenues you mentioned and seek intergenerational justice and empowerment for future.
Thank you.
Now, I invite you all to take some time to ask yourselves if your heart seeks to be the next Greta Thunberg, to be the next Ridhima Pandey or the next Tim. If you are inspired to act, we invite you to download our Asserting Rights app now and earn a certificate as an Earth Pro activist issued by Nina's Mind and Fridays for Future. Download the Asserting Rights app from Play Store today. The link will be shared in the chat box. One of the most important steps you can take is to talk about it. Have conversations around climate emergencies and spread awareness about it.
You know what time is it for, Neha? It's 4:00. Time for another quiz. Answer the question showing on your screen right now. What was agreed to the Paris Agreement that came out of COP21 held in Paris in 2015? Is it to protect biodiversity and end the deforestation of the world's rainforest? Or to keep global temperature rise well below 2 degrees Celsius pre-industrial levels and to pursue a path to limit warming to 1.5 degrees Celsius? Or is it to limit sea level rise to 3 feet above current levels?
or to pursue a goal of 100% clean renewable energy? %70 of children have gave the correct answer. So the correct answer is to keep global temperature rise well below 2 degrees Celsius pre-industrial levels and to pursue a path to limit warming to 1.5 degrees Celsius.
And now, without further ado, let me invite the fourth panelist of the day, Tosi. Tosi is a young woman from the small Pacific island nation of Kiribati. Tosi is in Australia temporarily and is very passionate about the issue of climate change. She is concerned for her future and the future of young people across the Pacific and throughout the world. Kiribati is one of the world's least developed countries, and Kiribati's contribution to the climate change and global warming is very small. It is very vulnerable to the impacts of climate change and could well become uninhabitable by 2050. In preparation for COP26, the annual United Nations Global Climate Conference in November this year, Tosi is writing to Australian leaders, including PM Scott Morrison and opposition leader Anthony Albanese, to ask them to take urgent, strong climate action. Tosi, please unmute yourself and address the gathering.
Thank you very much for having me. My name is Tosi Tatawa. I came to Australia in 2018 to do my novitiate studies with the Sisters of the Good Samaritan. I was supposed to go back to my home island last year, but due to the pandemic outbreak, I cannot. I have not been able to return. I am living in Western Sydney at the moment. Originally, I came all the way from Kiribati, which is 3 hours from Fiji by plane. Kiribati is a low-lying nation in the Central Pacific Ocean and located on the equator. It is made up of 32 atolls with very rich 2 meters above sea level and 1 coral island. Most islands have an ocean shoreline and coastal lagoon. There are no hills or streams. Kiribati people rely on fresh water from lenses or wells, which are under threat from saltwater. It is one of the most vulnerable nations in the world to the effects of climate change. My home island, Kiribati, and my people are at the front line of experiencing and battling the adverse impacts of the climate crisis, an issue that we have made little contribution to. I am very concerned about our lives and our future, as climate change has already threatened us in many ways. Kiribati is already experiencing more days with extreme rainfall. Runoff from heavy rain often contaminates freshwater sources and increases the likelihood of children developing life-threatening diarrhea and cholera. Children in Kiribati are very vulnerable to climate change as they are more likely than adults to die because of poor water and sanitation. In Kiribati, Children are aware of this issue of climate change. In one of the interviews conducted by one of the NGOs, one child said, "There is no way we can live because the land of ours that we are going to build our gardens on is gone. The land is washed away by waves, and we do not have enough space for everyone to live on." Many children in Kiribati have to walk to school, and every time there is a strong storm surge, children do not go to school because the roads are flooded. In 2009, the family of one of my friends, Claire Andrea, who is also very proactive on climate change, lost 3 babies within 3 months due to a long drought, which made the water very blackish. So these babies died from cholera. On the 5th of January 2019, I video called with one of my cousins back home. She looked very worried and frustrated because of the intense rain. She showed me what had happened at home, and I could see water everywhere inside the house. There had been downpours for the whole week, causing flooding. So my family was forced to stay somewhere else with their relatives until the water had gone out. I thought that my family was safe as they live in the center of the land, far from the threat of sea storms, but they obviously are not. No one is safe anymore from the effects of climate change. These are some stories on the impacts of climate change in Kiribati. I strongly feel that this is unjust for the children and for everyone in Kiribati, as we have hardly contributed to climate change, and yet we are experiencing real suffering from it. We no longer feel safe as the sea level keeps on rising. Some of the lands are disappearing from erosion, and some places have experienced flooding from non-stop raining. Our lives has been threatened by climate change, and we are extremely concerned about our future. Therefore, I humbly ask you for your support and assistance by talking to your government leaders about this issue to find helpful ways to reduce the effect of climate change on our island and other Pacific islands. As Pacific Islanders, we need industrialized countries to take a lead in climate action and justice to reduce greenhouse gas emissions. As a preparation before COP26, I feel humbled and honored to be the human face of this campaign called Stand with Tosi, and to share my story with the people around the world. Having my face used in this campaign will help other people to understand more about our stories as people from the Pacific Islands and what to do to help us. My face is representing the faces of all human beings who are facing any kind of devastating effects because of climate change. Thank you.
Thank you, Tossie and Maria, for sharing the story and experience on climate change. We will surely support for our future environment and to protect our environment. We are glad to have you here with us.
Well, that was overwhelming just to be in the presence of such amazing panelists. Now, it's time for breaking out into small rooms where each delegate will now be given a chance to interact with one another. Each delegate will be asked to introduce themselves in 30 seconds, which should entail your name, country of residence, country allocated, your environmental concerns and passions, along with your previous engagements with climate change and your future plans of engagement and climate change advocacy. Now, the floor will also be open for interaction and deliberation with one of the panelists in each of the breakout room. Remember to keep your introduction within the time limit and share your thoughts freely. Moderators, to please follow these rules in the breakout rooms.
Kindly click on the blue button appearing in front of your screen, and it will take you to the breakout rooms.
Please click on the blue button